Who knew that Amber would ever be able to tell her experiences about a book that she actually liked and that actually caught her attention? To Amber, the idea of reading has always been dreading because of the long pages and scholarly vocabulary words. Because of this, it has always been hard for Amber to focus on one main book without becoming distracted. It wasn't until Amber read Jade's Legacy, which left a lasting impact on her life. I remember you telling me how you first read this book and when you were about to enter your first year of high school. How did this book play a major role in impacting that new chapter of your life?
It was no secret that I was terrified to go to high school. I would tell anyone that. It's just I didn't know what to expect, especially having more classes than I was used to. I remember like bugging my sister like at the end of the summer, going towards my beginning of my high school year, and I would ask her like, "How will I know where to go? Like, how will like I know like what to do on the first day without being lost and stuff?" Like that was just my biggest fear of being like lost. And so, like, asking her those questions, I knew that she was getting annoyed. But one day, as she was cleaning out her closet, she threw a book at me. And, like, I was shocked due to the fact that I had seen that book my previous year in 8th grade, like, in a library, but I would never pay no attention to it because reading was just not for me. And so, like, I was shocked that to see that book again. So from there, I knew that it was a reason why I had to read this book because it kept, like, reappearing in my life.
Yeah, I had similar experiences with you, not knowing where to go and asking my sisters questions.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So, what made you not want to read the book when it was first given to you then after asking your sister those questions? Like, was it just too long, or did you not have the passion for reading?
I never had the passion for reading. It was just, I can remember in high school and in elementary and middle school, teachers, they never really asked us what we like to read. It was always, oh, I'm going to assign you this book and you have to read it. And I don't think they realized that what works for me doesn't work for someone else. Me personally, I just can't sit and read a book straight, like just straight to the point, like all day, every day. I have to take time and like do other things to understand the book because I have a hard time comprehending books that don't appeal to me. And so from that just really turned me away from reading. And I just don't really care for reading at all.
Right, yeah. So, how did Jade's Legacy specifically relate to your transition into high school? What did it teach you?
It taught me that friends come and go. Like I watched how Jade, her best friend, well, her and her best friend, they kind of went their separate ways due to the fact that her best friend was running for homecoming queen. Her best friend Mickey, she was like the spoiled brat. Everybody knew of her, and it's just Mickey wanted everybody to bow down to her knees, and Jade wasn't going for that like anymore. And so that right there taught me that sometimes in life, people are gonna come and go, and you have to let people go out of your life because you just grow and things just get old after a while. And so that right there, like it opened my eyes a lot because when I got to high school, me and my best friend, we kind of went our own ways due to stuff.
So, then what in particular stuck out about Jade's Legacy, though?
The way she kept her head up and the way she overcame her problems, she didn't let things get the best of her. Like even though she was a high school student, experiencing like so much like drama with her mom, drama with her friends at school, she didn't let it take over her life. She still was in good spirits, and that's what I really enjoyed about reading the book because what normal teenager can go through things such like that and still come out on top.
Right, yeah, that's pretty crazy to do. So, from examining like everything that you read and the encounters that Jade had throughout the book, and what she did to overcome her problems, is there a specific event that actually happened in your life where you maybe thought of this book or used some of Jade's lessons to help you get through your tough times?
At the beginning of my senior year, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that was like the most horrible thing because I would remember watching on TV like people with cancer period, they would lose their hair, they would be sick all the time, they would get weaker and weaker, and so that's what I would constantly think of, and like that right there devastated me. But like as time went on and I dealt with it, I remembered like how Jade dealt with her situations and like how she stayed focused and she didn't let things bother her. She just stayed uplifted and didn't let things get the best of her.
That's really nice. Yeah, I understand what cancer's like. Before reading Jade's Legacy, how did you handle your situations in life, and Was it similar or was it worse?
I can definitely say it was worse. I never knew how to deal with stress and like difficult situations. Like, I just thought that every time I went through something, I always said, "Why me?" Because I know that I can't deal with things. I'm not good at stress, and so after reading a book, I was like, "Okay, it's part of life. You're gonna go through situations. You're gonna go through hardships, and everything won't be easy." So I just kind of like I learned to keep my head up because before it was just rough.
Although reading wasn't the most fascinating thing to Amber, her outlook on reading has been changed forever. Amber examined not only the hardships the main character Jade encountered, but she focused on the way Jade overcame her adversities. From observing Jade's issues at school and home, Amber was influenced to learn how to deal with her nerve-wracking situations that may come in life.
For Ashton, books are like demons coming from hell, forcing themselves on him. When he sees books or hears people talk about books, he instantly cringes. As a child, due to his athletic background and participation in sports, Ashton was bigger than normal kids on his team. After not making the baseball team in sixth grade, Ashton's passion for sports started to fade away. It wasn't until he read the book Football Genius by Sam Green, which inspired him to put his passion back into sports. How was reading before this book for you? Like, how was your experience with reading?
Reading was a very strong thing for me back when I was younger. I used to be one of the top readers in my school, actually, because I enjoyed like reading, like being able to just sit there with the pictures in the book and reading the words. That's when it was all nice. But the older that I grew, the more I started to get away from reading. The pictures went away, the things, the vocabulary became a lot stronger, things like that. So, and then also I was finally old enough to play sports. That's when I was first introduced to baseball and football. So instead of sitting there inside of a room reading a book, I would choose to go outside, play the sports because I'm just an athletic person. So my mindset is not wanting to stay inside of a room, staying inside the house when I can be outside playing with my friends.
For me, certain books helped me throughout life. So would you say that this book kind of impacted your life or no?
This book definitely impacted my life. I was going through a rough time back when I was in middle school when I was younger. And just like I was talking about earlier, we were real athletic. Like me and my friends, we all played baseball, we all played football. So it was a usual thing. We were all always out there on the field, always outside having fun. But sixth grade came and it was time to try out for baseball. So we're all sitting there like, oh, we about to rock these trials. We're going to get out there. We're going to do our best. We're going to do us and things like that. And well, we went out there. Everybody was happy. I was happy. We went out there and we tried out for a whole week. And Friday the roster was posted, and I went there Friday night to go see it, and I recognized my name was on it.
Okay, like for me, I could experience like trying out for color guard and cheerleading, and like both times I made it. So I never went through that experience of like not being able to make the team. So like, how did that make you feel?
At the time, like one of the worst things about it, not making the team, definitely like with your friends being there, is that if all your friends made the team and you're the only one left out, that's one thing you're gonna be sad about. Plus, since you thought you was a real good athlete and you didn't make the team like everybody else did, that also makes you feel bad. So this situation put me through a real sad time. Like I stopped really caring about things at the moment. Like I stopped really reading. Like one of the main things was I wasn't getting my AR points and things like that. And I stopped giving like care. Like I stopped caring about school. I stopped caring about sports. Like that's when I started to lose my passion for sports. Right then and there.
So going back to the book that you mentioned earlier, would you say that you had similarities to this book, or did this book impact you in specifically?
This book impacted me a lot because it hit me. The reason why this book came to me is back in sixth grade when I told you I stopped. After not making the baseball team, I stopped really reading. And my teacher realized that I wasn't getting any AR points at the time. So she called my mom and my mom and her had a conference, and they were talking about how I wasn't reading, and my mom told her about how I didn't make the baseball team and how I was pretty sad at the moment. So they were talking. They were like, football season's coming up, and he loves football too. So they was like, let's get him something now, get him ready for that, because they recognize I started losing my passion for it, not just baseball but anything. Because when you don't make a team, it really takes a toll on you. So they talked about, and my teacher, Miss Sal at the time, she was like into sports as well. So she knew about how Tim Green was a very good author, and she knew that at the time he wrote his first book, and that was Football Genius at the time. So that's when they decided both, oh, let's give him this book to read. So they gave it to me. At first, I didn't read it at all. I didn't even care that it was about football or anything, because I was just in that type of mood. And then I already wasn't that good with reading. I just wasn't passionate about it anymore. So when I started to read it, and then I started to just like actually feel love what was coming out of it and things like that. And the character in the book was Troy, and Troy was he's a backup quarterback in 7th grade on a team that his own dad coached, and his dad didn't even want to help him because he realized that he didn't potentially have enough talent at the time. So he was going through a very rough time in his life. But one thing that Troy didn't do, Troy did not give up, and that's when he was blessed later with, like, his mom became a worker for the Atlanta Falcons, so he was able to get out there on the field. He started practicing with the Atlanta Falcons. Like, they were helping him out, trying to get him, like, he was looking at pro, basically do what he wanted to do later on in life and things like that. So he did that, and that's when I realized, why should I give up when I could be just like, let this help me, allow this to make me even want to work harder, become better, like it did for Troy. And Troy ended up becoming a quarterback and one of the greatest ones in that middle school. So that just put me in the mindset that I could work and I could become one of the best too. I think we can all agree that reading isn't exactly the one thing we like to do in our free time. However, we can also agree upon the fact that throughout our school and reading careers, there has been at least one book that has made a significant impact on our lives and helped us overcome adversities. For Reid, Mitch, albums, Tuesday with Maury was the book. What was going on in your life before you read the book Tuesday with Maury?
I was never a good reader, and sometimes today I still struggle with reading. However, when I was younger, it was a different story. Reading was just a burden. It was frustrating and annoying, mostly because I read behind like everyone and with poor words, and like I was just bad at stuff. I had to take reading tests, and eventually I was tested and placed into an individualized education program when I was in 1st grade. It was like kind of embarrassing. I was in a special class where I would sit and read with the teacher, and I would get weekly reading comprehension tests just to see if I was retaining any more information. I was in classes like this until 5th grade, where I was finally able to like join normal class. I mean, I was always in normal classes, but I didn't have to be in the special study hall anymore. And when I was in like the normal classes, I would still occasionally be pulled out of my English class every now and again to have one of those reading comprehension tests just to see if on my own if I was progressing. And I never really took advantage of like my situation that I was in until about 7th grade, because with being in these special classes, I could have extra time on tests. I could have like a scribe write for me on essays, and it was easier if but I don't know, I was just kind of frustrated with the whole idea of being in these classes, so I never really took advantage of that until later. But before the book, I wasn't a bad student, but I wasn't the most involved when it came to class either, especially English, and reading it definitely wasn't the first thing I liked to do.
Yeah, that was the same for me. I was not into reading at all. Well, how did you first receive the book, and what made you end up reading it?
When I was in 8th grade, I was still in my individualized education program, but I was slowly coming out of it. I wasn't in it by high school. So I first got the book when I was in my 8th grade English class, and my teachers at the time, we had two. We had Miss Rourke, who was like the main English teacher, and then Mr. Carpenter. And they gave our class that book as an assignment, and we had to write a paper on it. So like every other book I'd read before, it started out slow. I just kind of didn't really pay attention to it. I mean, I always would make sure I read at least the first 2 chapters of a book completely so I could understand it and kind of, skip my way through class if I was called on for a question. Um, so that's how I got the book, but this one was different. I actually had to go read this one with the second teacher, Mr. Carpenter. So we would either go and we'd sit in his classroom or we'd sit in the hall, and most of the time we would just like kind of read it quietly in our heads, and then because he knew I probably wouldn't do that, every now and again he'd make me read a chapter or two out loud to him, and then the ones that I didn't read out loud he'd give me a little quiz on to ensure that I was actually reading the book and staying on track. So he would ask me detailed questions about the chapters that I didn't have to read out loud. Like you can imagine, I mean, it was extremely annoying, but I didn't really have a choice. But that's kind of why I continued to read the book. And honestly, I'm pretty happy and thankful that he made me sit with him and read the book, because without it, I would have never really made a connection to this book, and I probably still would have ended up hating reading and just skimming through all the books I've read today and just, not really paying attention to any books as something that could help me.
But yeah, but I can see that like books really can have a very good impact on your life. And just like me with Troy in my book, how he came through and he helped me through my rough time. So how was Maury's story able to help you get over your embarrassment of your reading abilities, and why did you continue to read it afterwards?
I still don't really know what made me want to continue to read other than the fact that I had to, but if I had to say, I think mostly it was because later on in the book I actually found it was something that I could relate to. Tuesdays with Maury was the first book that I read cover to cover, and that was able to relate many parts of the stories to my life. My grandfather, for example, he was really sick. He started out with prostate cancer, and then had lung cancer from smoking, and then when he got the chemo radiation for that, it caused leukemia, which eventually killed him. And so Maury had ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, which, I mean, is completely different disease, but, it in both ways the person kind of just deteriorates, and it just becomes really hard to be with the person and, like, for the person itself to live. And so that's kind of was the first connection I had, because my grandfather really became really sick when I was in 8th grade. So when we would sit there, I'd try to, like, listen to the story, and I'd realize, like, I was doing the exact same thing that the two main characters, Mitch and Maury, were doing. Mitch was trying to spend as much time as he could with Maury before Maury passed, and I was doing the same with my grandfather. I would always go over there, whether we were, like, working on the boat or if he was just inside reading a newspaper, we would just go over there and just hang out the rest of the day.
Well, yeah, I got you. See, I understand that. Well, I know that there's things that stick with you throughout life, like how Troy's ability of not giving up stuck with me and made me work harder. So what did you find in your book that sticks with you throughout your life now?
Yeah, I found a lot of things that would stick with me through that, and I guess some of the lessons that Maury taught Mitch kind of stick with me. Like when I was in the middle of my grandfather being sick, and I was reading in class just because it was English, it was just kind of boring to me, and all class really was. I wasn't really into school, especially with my IEP program thing. It just wasn't my thing. So being able to like sit there and connect with a book and understand what the main characters were going through was just kind of like, it was something nice to have that I've never experienced before. And so those are like some of the things that I keep with me, like the different experiences and lessons that were taught.
Yeah, it does feel good when you actually feel a connection with something. Like definitely something like reading, when you hate it and then you feel a connection through it, it's a great thing. So how were you able to carry like the things that the book gave you into high school?
So it was my freshman year when my grandpa passed away, and I was kind of angry and frustrated and sad all at the same time. And what bothered me probably the most is I wasn't really allowed to see him before he passed away, and my parents didn't really think that was like the best to see him how he was. So I was just kind of angry inside about that. And I knew it wasn't like their fault or his fault, but that's kind of all I wanted to do was see him. So I just had to take Maury's lessons with me through that time, uh, about how he talks about how we need to understand death more rather than just kind of see it as something horrible. And it just kind of helped me cope with the emotions and feelings I was having at the time.
Yeah, see, I got you. I know that our two books are different in everything, and I know that we have totally different situations. But was there a point that you actually wanted to give up on reading the book? Like, it just didn't give you what you wanted out of it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, especially when I first started reading it, I mean, I never even wanted to read it at all. It was kind of just sat in the back of the class and didn't really, I mean, I listened, but I didn't really like get involved, never really tried to raise my hand, especially if she would ask for volunteers to read the certain parts of the books that we were reading. And so we got it, and I was already over it. But I had to keep going because obviously I was tested on it, and it wasn't for a grade or anything, but it was just something I had to keep doing. So until where I found like a connection in the book, I guess, where Mitch started to go back and see more and more often. That was kind of the turning point for me, where I actually started to want to keep reading it, where I kind of could relate it to myself in a way. And I mean, I didn't realize the huge impact that it would have on me later in life, but that's just kind of where I stood at that time.
All right, so yeah, I know that I almost gave up on my book as well. So just like what made the change? What made you want to keep on keeping on with the book?
When I made the connection, that was kind of the whole turning point for me. So it was, I knew that there was someone sick that I wanted to spend time with, that I wanted to like. At the time, I wasn't really thinking that I wanted to learn all my lessons, my life lessons from this person, but I wanted to spend time with them. I wanted to listen to what they had to say, if they had any advice for me, all the things like that. And I felt that Mitch kind of was going through the same thing, with Maury, because Maury was sick and he was trying to do the same thing I was. So despite the different diseases, I felt like Mitch, even though Maury and him were not directly related, I could just kind of relate to him even more. And I believe that like I felt something with the character, and this was like the first time that that's ever happened to me. So that kind of made the change for me.
How has this book made you a better reader?
This book has opened my eyes to not be so cynical when I first receive a book, to maybe think about the position someone else is in. This doesn't just apply to reading, but also in life. Thinking about your friends as if someone else is in their shoes, or as if you could be in their shoes. Don't judge people. Just to kind of go about the book as if it's something that could potentially have a great impact on you. I realize that books are something that can have a deep connection with you, and that's what I do now when I look for books. I just look for something that I could have a deep, lasting connection with. Even though reading wasn't always our strong points, we all recognized that there was a point in time for us where books, and in particular one book, was able to have a lasting impact on us. Whether if it was because we didn't make a sports team, or embarrassed about being in a specialized education program, or if we were dealing with a loved one becoming sick, we were all able to get a lasting lesson from the books that we read and that we related to. We realized that someone somewhere else has probably been through a similar situation to us, and that we can always learn from them, and that books will always be the tools to help us learn from their situations.